Little unwanted airspace in Minneapolis, or so maybe run fits or tackling in Chicago to what you put out last week?
Just daily, weekly improvement. That's something we preach. We just try to, improve 1% better every single time. Whether that's a Wednesday practice, Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning walkthrough, or obviously game day. So I think if you can subtly walk off the field better than you walked on it, no matter what the setting is, that's our goal. Even if it's a small, even if it's 1% better. So the guys have done that, and I think that's kind of our daily mindset, no matter what we're doing.
Joe, how do you think the secondary kind of adjusted to losing Jair and then obviously having Keyshawn step up in the slot?
Sure. That's the NFL. That's today's NFL. It unfortunately happens. And you obviously never know when it's going to happen. That's why I do think, the preparation, the meetings, the walkthroughs, the practice, whether you're physically getting the rep, or you're watching, you're mentally getting the rep, because you truly, you never know. You never know when you're going to have to go in and play. Like a guy like Keyshawn Nixon, if you look at his defensive snaps and special team snaps, I mean, he played, 70-something plays. So you just never know, and that's why you got to prepare like you're a starter. You're not a backup. You're a starter in waiting, and you never know when that moment's going to happen.
I'm glad you mentioned Keyshawn's a good segue there. What did you know about him coming here? I just double-checking the numbers. He played 270 defensive snaps in 3 years. So here's a guy who didn't have much of a track record of it. He's obviously got a huge role, and you trust him in that.
Sure. It's kind of the way the league works. When the way we as coaches, no matter what team you're on, you prepare for the draft. So of course you, as a position coach, you have a pretty broad scope of all the guys that you evaluate coming out. Then as a coordinator, you try to, focus on the top whatever number of guys at each position. So you always, where I'm going with, you always kind of know of a guy, you've heard of a guy. But, we had the benefit of, Keyshawn had played for Rich at the Raiders the past couple of years. So, of course, you hear of players, players. Some players, obviously, in the draft process, you do more work on than others. But, of course, we had known who he was. We had heard of him. And then, obviously, Rich, having daily interaction with him, having coached him, was a big benefit. So, great kid, talented kid. And, had always been a really, really good special teams player. And, a lot of times those guys just, they need an opportunity, they need a shot. And he's been, Coach Montgomery, or Coach Gray's done a phenomenal job with him, coaching him every single day since he's been here. He's been a sponge, and Jerry does a really great job in that room of really cultivating a mindset that those guys, it's when you walk into that DB room, it's all football. And they do a phenomenal job. And obviously Jerry does a great job with them. But then, the veteran leadership that they have in that room with Savage and Amos and, Ja and, even Stokes. Stokes has played a lot of football and grown up a lot. And then you add, like we did last year, Rasul Douglas to that group. So there's a lot of football guys in that room. And you have no choice. When you go into that room, you have no choice but to be a football guy, because they're talking ball constantly in there. So Keyshawn's done a really good job individually, but I think the group, starting with Coach Gray, has done a really good job of getting him to where he's at.
Joe, at what point in the past 2 seasons did you notice teams chipping Rashawn and sliding help to his side more? And obviously his sack Sunday came after a chip. How have you seen him kind of adjust to that more attention?
Yeah, as soon as you get a reputation as a rusher, you're going to have to deal with whether it's, tight ends or backs. I mean, you have to. When you're an elite rusher, a lot of times they can't just let you go one-on-one. So it's something that I think just is part of the evolution of Rashawn, that he's, he's just gotten better and better, and with that reputation comes attention, and it's something that he's obviously has to deal with on a weekend basis, and I think Rebs has done a great job just making sure that he understands that, hey, you'll get some one-on-ones, but a lot of times they're not going to allow you just to have a one-on-one rush with an offensive tackle. So you're going to have to deal with those chips with a tight end and or a back. And there's all just different ways. There's different tricks we can use. There's different, tactics that we can use to, help him on that. And he's done a great job with it.
Joe, on the two-point play, when they were lined up first time at the 2, you had your big people in there. I think you had 4 defensive linemen. They had 3 wides there, and then after the delay, they stayed with 3 wides, but you went to nickel. I'm just curious, what's the thing? Just because there's more space there? Is that the reason that you?
Sure. I mean, there's a big difference between defending 2 yards and defending 7 yards. So, but a lot goes into that. Obviously, as you mentioned, what personnel they're in, placement of the ball, yard line. Those are all things that factor in.
I thought it was interesting because they stayed in 3 wides, and normally, you normally match that, but obviously at the goal line, you were in a different look. So
like I said, different mindset when the ball based on where it's at.
So far, does New England look different with Josh McDaniels out? And I think Matt Patricia's calling the plays. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've never. I'm assuming he is, but obviously, ton of respect for Coach Patricia and Coach Judge. Both of them are obviously heavily involved, and they've all, they've been in that system for a long time now. Obviously, they were in that system for many years under different roles. Joe is the special teams coordinator and Matt is the defensive coordinator. But, of course, I think a few weeks ago we talked about, systems and, of course, it's not going to be exactly the same, but I think they have a system, they have a belief in the way they do things. And, it was established and built over the years, obviously with Brady there. So, there's going to be subtle differences because, that exact person isn't there anymore. And again, it's a different quarterback, so things are going to be different. But it's still the New England Patriots, and it's still their philosophy, and it's still their mindset, and obviously Coach Belichick's still there.
Hey, Joe, all the different places you've lined up Quay Walker, what's the balance there between putting too much on his plate versus,
Sure.
You want to get the most out of him?
No, I think that's something that, from a coach you have to be careful doing because he's so talented, he's so gifted, he can do so many things, but at the same time, you got to be careful and you got to pump the brakes, and because he's a great chess piece because you can move him around and have him do a lot of things, but you have to be careful drawing the line, and I talk to KO about that all the time, saying, KO, you gotta tell me at times, say, dude, we can't. Enough is enough. We can't do that. But Quay is, and he's the type of guy. I don't know how well you guys have got to know him. He's the type of kid. You could give him 1,000 things, and he'd just be like, "Yes, sir. Okay, coach." So I think we do. We have to be careful with that. Obviously, it's a fine line, but he's a lot of fun to work with because he can do a lot of great things, and incredibly talented kid, great kid, and he kind of has the mentality, and he feels, whatever you want me to do, coach, I can do it. So I can line up anywhere, and I'll get it done. So, but yeah, I think with a young player, you have to be. I think with any player, you have to be careful overdoing it and putting too much on their plate.